Let's talk about the Super Bowl chances for every single team in the NFL playoffs. Here we go. All right, as I said, here's the possible tiers. Obviously, elite contender at the top, possible winner, maybe make the Super Bowl, 2-win ceiling, 1-win ceiling, and then the frauds. Now, these are all playoff teams, so you know what? There can't be that much of a fraud. But, just want to start off, let me know in the comments where you think I went wrong, where you think I went right, and let me know who's your favorite team and who's making the Super Bowl. I'm a Ravens fan, rocking their Super Bowl champion jersey, but I'm going to start off with the NFC, and then I'm going to go in order of kind of this tier list. But starting off with the Lions, I think the Lions are a very easy team to talk about. I think this is an elite contender. I know that they're, potentially waiting on Aiden Hutchinson, could potentially return for the Super Bowl, but this offense, getting David Montgomery back is going to be huge next week. Jared Goff is playing at a, almost superstar level. Amon-Ra's getting open. Laporta hasn't even had, a great year compared to what expectations were, but this is a team that is just playing very fluid on offense, very fluid on defense, and they're going to win games and probably make the Super Bowl. I think there's one other team in their conference that could potentially upset them. I'll talk about them in a little bit. But I think the Lions are absolutely an elite contender. Their odds are, like plus 115 to make it out of the NFC. So I think that's definitely like a good option right there. I don't want to spend too much time talking about them. The Eagles, I'm throwing the Eagles in possible winner. That's the one team I could see totally beating the Lions. This is a really good football team. Their defensive line and front seven and corners, really their entire defense as a whole has just turned it around. Shout out to Vic Fangio. A lot of people were looking at, Sirianni as somebody that could be on his way out after last season. And he hired some great, coordinators. Vic Fangio's got that defense playing very, very well. And they're very young. These guys have gotten better every single week, guys like Cooper DeJean, Mitchell, obviously, and then that defensive line, guys like Davis and Allen and everybody is just balling out. So I think they're a possible winner. They could definitely win the Super Bowl. They're one of like 4 teams that I think could absolutely, go all the way. That's a really good football team. I do not want to sleep on the Eagles whatsoever. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I like the Bucs. But at the same time, I don't see them making the Super Bowl. I love Baker Mayfield. I love Mike Evans. Their defense, not in love with. I think they're getting a little bit too old. I don't think they have the pass rush they did when they won that Super Bowl. And I just don't think they're going to be able to overcome kind of the flaws that they have. But I think they're on the right track. I think, honestly, I think that I have them at kind of 1-win ceiling. I think they could potentially beat the Commanders. I know they're favored in that game. A lot of people think the Commanders should be. I think they could maybe win that game. I just don't see a world where they're going in and beating a team like Philadelphia. And I know they beat Detroit earlier in the year, but I just don't see that happening again. So, unfortunately, as much as I love Baker Mayfield, he's one of my favorite players of all time, I just don't see him getting to that next level this season with the Buccaneers. Next up, the Rams. This is a team that I think they're in the same, kind of vein as the Bucs. They've been winning games, but it hasn't looked pretty. And I love their pass rush. I love Jared Verse. He was my Defensive Player of the Year prediction before the season. He was my number 1 pass rusher in the class. He's been a monster. Him and Byron Young have done a very good job. But the passing game for the Rams just hasn't looked good. They're going to have to take on the Vikings in the first round. And if they are able to win that game, they got to take on the Lions. And I just don't see this team being able to go on another Super Bowl run like they did when they won it back in 2020. So I like this team. I like most of the teams in the playoffs this year. I love their players. I just don't see them getting, over that hump into that next round. And then next up, we're going into the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is a team that could maybe get to the Super Bowl. I don't see them winning the Super Bowl. And I think that just comes down to quarterback play. I don't dislike Sam Darnold. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. But when I'm looking at teams that, are going to win the Super Bowl, they either have just a fantastic, unbelievable, best defense, best clear defense in the league, or they at least have a really good quarterback. And Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. He's not a really good quarterback at this point in his career. So, I don't think this defense is good enough to carry them, for multiple wins against, they have to beat the Rams, and then they'd have to beat, either the Lions, which they haven't done all year, they're 0-2, or they'd have to beat the Eagles. That would be really tough, and maybe they could win one. But, beating both of them and then beating a team like maybe the Bills or the Chiefs or the Ravens, I just don't see that happening. But I think this is a really good season for them. They're on the right track. Whether they stay with Sam Darnold or not, I think they're going in the right direction. I just don't see them potentially winning it this season. Next up, the Commanders. I hate to say it, but I'm putting them in like 1-win max. I like Jane Daniels. He's had a really good year. I like their offense. I just don't think they're talented enough. I think they've been really well coached this year. I think they're really young, but I just don't see them going out and having, master class games against all these great teams consecutively, right? Could they beat the Lions, in a game in December? Yes, absolutely they could. But are they beating the Lions and then the Eagles? Or Eagles then the Lions? I don't really see that happening with this team. But I would love to see it. I think it would be awesome to see that. But then I'm going to move into the next team. And this is a kind of a surprise. I'm going to throw the Green Bay Packers in the possible winner. Because I do think if they make the Super Bowl, unlike the Vikings, I think they have a better chance to win. Because if Jordan Love plays his best game, right? Jordan Love's best game is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Sam Darnold's best game is pretty average among best games. So I just think that Jordan Love brings that little extra spark. I know they don't have Christian Watson. That does hurt them. But I think they have one of the best coaches in the NFL in LaFleur. I think they can run the ball. And that's why I put the Eagles in possible winner was because the Eagles are playing the Packers. And putting them both in elite contender, I'm not going to do that. I think it's going to be a really close game. Could the Packers get blown out by the Eagles because of that defensive line, because of that run game with Saquon Barkley? Yes. I think this is the worst possible matchup for them, but it's also a revenge game, right? They lost week 1 in Brazil to them. Jordan Love did end up getting hurt, but they still had the Hail Mary chance at the end. But I think this is a really good football team, and I think they could absolutely make the Super Bowl. And I think they could win the Super Bowl if they get the right matchup. I do believe in this staff. I do believe in this roster. Maybe I'm being an idiot for that. But moving on to the Chiefs. I don't even know if I'm going to say anything. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're 2-time Super Bowl champions. They lost one game this year. They're a elite contender. Nothing else you could say. Buffalo Bills. Honestly, I think I'm putting them in maybe Super Bowl. I think in a one-off game, they can absolutely beat anybody. But their defense, in my opinion, is too turnover heavy. They're the best turnover forcing defense in the NFL, or at least in the NFL playoffs. They get a lot of good possessions, starting at, inside the other team's 30. I just don't have faith that they're going to be able to stop a team like the Detroit Lions, like a Philadelphia Eagles, or pretend like they could beat the Chiefs and they could make the Super Bowl for sure. But, the high-powered offenses that we're seeing coming out of the NFC, I think would be too much for this defense to overcome. And as great as Josh Allen is and has been this year, he's probably going to win the MVP. I don't see him being able to overcome how difficult that road is going to be. I think it could be he carries them, gets to the Super Bowl, but it's after that much carrying, it's just too much. With the Ravens, I'm going to throw the Ravens in possible winner. I would love to throw them in elite contender. I almost put them in maybe Super Bowl. The difference that they have is they have Derrick Henry. Their defense has been one of the best defense, maybe the best defense in the NFL the last 6 weeks of the NFL season. So they flipped the script. If they had the defense they had earlier in the year, I'm probably putting them at 2-win ceiling. I'm not putting them in the Super Bowl. But with how the defense has reacted, I think they could absolutely go on a run. Lamar Jackson, if he plays, a great Lamar Jackson. I think a great Lamar Jackson game is maybe the greatest game in NFL history. I don't know if I'd take a quarterback playing their best possible game over Lamar Jackson playing his best possible game. That's how good I think Lamar Jackson is. But in the playoffs, we haven't necessarily seen that. So I just can't, as good as I think this Ravens team can be, I think that on their best day, they beat anybody else's best day. The problem is they don't have their best day very often. They lose to bad teams. They lose games they shouldn't. They will forget to give the ball to Derrick Henry. They'll forget to give the ball to their star players. And all of a sudden, a team with a Patrick Mahomes or a team with a Josh Allen or even like a Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley combo where they know they got to give it to their guys. they're going to outduel them in the end if the coaching isn't up to what it needs to be to win it all. Next up, the Houston Texans. And I didn't want to put them here, but I think I have to based on the injuries that they've had. I just don't see them winning a game because of their injuries. I like CJ Stroud. I like their pass rush. But they play in the worst division in the NFL, the AFC South. Their offense hasn't looked very good. They're playing against a team in the Chargers that have maybe the best tackle duo. They have the best tackle duo in the AFC. Maybe you could argue the Eagles with Johnson and Mailata is better, or potentially the Lions. But it's one of the best offensive lines in football. And I just think the Chargers are going to beat them. And I think that I'm throwing the Chargers in the maybe Super Bowl category. I think Justin Herbert's the type of quarterback. I've had him in my top 5 for years. And people said, oh, Herbert can't do it. Herbert can't do it. I think Herbert can do it. I think he can beat the Chiefs. I think he can beat the Ravens. I think he can beat the Bills. I don't see him getting on a run. I don't think they have the talent on the team to go all the way and win the Super Bowl. But I do think they have the talent to upset all the top teams in the AFC. I think this is a scary team to play. I think the Texans, unfortunately, got a bad draw. If the Texans were playing, honestly, I think the Texans would lose in all the games that they play because of the injuries. Again, if they were fully healthy, I'd probably put the Texans in 2-win ceiling. Like, I wouldn't feel bad about that. But because they're not healthy, I have to put them in frauds. Maybe I should retitle that, but you know what? People will like it for the clickbait. I don't even know. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers up next. Like, 1 win. Like, they could beat the Ravens. I'm a Ravens fan. We lose to the Steelers on, they call it the voodoo magic, the black magic, the devil magic, whatever. Like, they just beat the Ravens. They win these games off of the most random things, and it could absolutely happen. They could beat the Ravens. But I don't think they're like, I don't want to say it's getting lucky that they would win the game, but it's just like something wild always ends up happening where they'd get that playoff win. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think, it's more likely than the Texans. So, potentially. And then the Denver Broncos. I'm throwing the Denver Broncos in a 2-win category. I think they play good defense. I think they run the ball. They're well coached. I don't think they're going to beat the Bills. But if they beat the Bills, if they beat the Bills, they automatically will play the Chiefs. That's a Chiefs team they almost beat, right? I think they match up well in the playoffs. Their style, their coaching, to be able to contend with these teams. My friend Carson is a Broncos fan, and he was telling me, he's like, they remind me of the Ravens. They're just worse at everything they do. And I thought that was a really great comparison, right? Hard physical defense, kind of a mobile quarterback-ish. It's just like the lesser version of that. And good defense, good quarterback, good coaching. That's going to win you games in January. They could potentially upset the Bills. And then, division game, you can always win a divisional game. I don't care if you're, like the Cleveland Browns beat the Ravens this year, right? The Cowboys beat somebody good. The Cowboys beat the Commanders this year. Like, divisional games are just wild. They could beat the Chiefs. I don't see them then going and beating a team like the Ravens or whoever else they would potentially be playing. Maybe the Chargers. I don't know who it would be. I don't see them winning that game after it. But that's my tier list. Let me know in the comment section down below where you think I went wrong, where you think I went right. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see all of you again next time.